Hey guys, thanks for dropping by the channel. In this video, I wanted to talk to you about Citizen watches, and not necessarily their more affordable lineup, but I'm going to talk to you about the Signature series from Citizen, which is like their upper echelon of watch offerings that compete at around the $1,000 price range. Now, that being said, you can typically find these Signature watches on the gray market or used for closer to 500 or 600 US dollars typically. And at that price, you're getting some really good watch for the money. All of these watches are hand finished, and they typically contain really nicely finished automatic movements, or some of their watches will use Eco Drive, which is their quartz solar powered movement. But if they do, they'll implement a lot more complications into the Signature series. Now, the watch I'm going to review today is this guy here. This is the Grand Touring from the Signature line. They also offer this as a sports watch that has a dive bezel and a stainless steel bracelet. But I particularly like this one. It's definitely a little more dressy, and I think it definitely takes a lot of cues from a Panerai Luminor. Just the case shape and dimension, as well as this crown guard here, it definitely looks like a Panerai. Although I think it's kind of what Panerai would envision if they wanted to make a more dressy Luminor instead of just having a more tooly aesthetic. So it's a really good watch. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to flip perspectives now, and I'll give you a close-up look at this watch and a detailed review of this particular timepiece. Okay, let's take a closer look at this Grand Touring from the Citizen Signature line. And I want to talk about the dimensions first, because this watch does wear slightly large, but it's still extremely comfortable. If you take a look at the lug dimensions across the case, it's just over 44 millimeters. Now, if you actually include this crown guard here, it's closer to 49 millimeters across the case. Case thickness comes in just under 14 millimeters. Lug to lug, it's just under 49 millimeters. And then finally, the lug opening here for this leather strap is 23 millimeters, which is my only gripe about the dimensions of this case. You know, if they were sticking closer to the Panerai spec, they would use a 24 millimeter bracelet or strap, or maybe they could have went with the more traditional 22 millimeter lug opening. But I'm okay with it. This leather strap is quite good. I'll talk more about that in a little more detail later. Now let's move on this dial, because it's really something to behold. This dial is actually protected by a domed sapphire crystal. And I gotta say, the anti-reflective treatment on this crystal is one of the best I've seen on any Citizen, even within the Signature lineup. First off, let's talk about the indices for this watch, because they're gorgeous. And you can see this dial is quite large. It's more of a matte black or glossy dial, but it does have some sunburst effect when you have it under direct light. Now, there are applied Arabic numerals for 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. And you can see that each of the Arabics are done really well. They're brushed really well, but they have a really nice polished stripe going through them. And then for the remaining indices, I'm really impressed by the hand finishing that's done. You can see that each of those indices are multifaceted. There's two separate indices, and then in the middle you have really nicely filled lume. So this watch does work well under low light conditions. And you can see each of those facets for the indices, they transition between brushed, polished, and then brushed again. It's really something to behold. And then moving on to hand sack, which is done to a high level as well. It's all high polish, and you can see that the hour and minute hands are broadsword style, and they're luminesce really well. And then with the second hand, you have that really nice arrowhead tip, and you can see that it extends pretty close to the edge of the dial, and it even has a really nice polished counterweight to it as well. Now you can also see on the dial that they applied their Citizen logo near the 12 o'clock, and it does say automatic and water resistant to 200 meters near the 6 o'clock here. There's a really nice date aperture near the 3 o'clock there, And you can actually see how that it kind of steps down to a black date wheel. And I love how they integrated the date because it's the same color. The date wheel itself is the same color as the dial. And then you just have really nice white print for the actual date. Now let's move in to the side a little. We can talk about the finishes along the case because they've done a really good job here as well. You can see that it's really nice satin across the flank here. You have a really fine beveled edge that transitions into brushing, and then you kind of have this conical bezel where you have some really nice brushed and then polished surfaces near the crystal itself. So a lot of detail was paid to the case construction of this watch. And let's move into the crown protection system as well. You can see that they have actually screwed the crown protector to the case. So parenthetically, if this was damaged, I think you could just use a small screwdriver and unscrew it. You can manually wind this movement from the crown. It's not screwed down actually, but I guess with this crown protection system in place, it does make it really water resistant. You can actually pop this out to position 1 here, and this is your quick date set function. And then if I pop this all the way out, you can see I just hacked the movement and it stopped. And visually you can also kind of see that the crown protector has moved out slightly, so you know that the crown is no longer seated to the case. It's not like a traditional like Panerai Luminor that has a lever system. This one you just really pull it out from the crown and then you can depress it all the way. And now you're watertight and the movement is running again. Speaking of the movement, this is using Citizen's own 9012 caliber. For those of you who are wondering, that's pretty much a Miyota 9015, but this is the Citizen brand to the Miyota. And their rotor for this movement is customized, which you can see here. It's actually a really nice rotor. They've hollowed it out a little, so it doesn't weigh as much as a traditional Miyota 9015. And it's slightly decorated too. You know, it's like most people say you can get that Miyota wobble if you spin the movement. This one spins the same way with the rotor, but again, because it's not as heavy, you don't feel it as much on wrist. So some nice detail on the back. And then let's move in and talk about this strap here. Again, it's a 23 millimeter leather strap. It's very thick and supple with nice white contrast stitching down the sides. The buckle here is large and substantial and finished really well in satin. Although I kind of wish that they did sign it. You know, they could have put their quote-unquote signature on this buckle, but they chose not to. But I think it wears really well. It breaks in very well. And I'm happy with the size. Again, if you want to use aftermarket strap options, just make sure that you do have something that fits a 23 millimeter lug. I'm going to throw up a low light lume shot now. What kind of grabbed my attention is one, how well the indices can play with the lume if you're not in complete darkness, and secondly that it glows green as opposed to the more traditional Citizen blue lume. So they went with a different formula than you traditionally see, like you would find on their dive watches. They're normally blue luminescence. Alright, I'm going to throw it on my wrist in a second so you can see how it wears. I'm actually currently wearing my Seiko Marine Master Tuna, and even though the Tuna is a 47 millimeter watch, this Citizen plays about the same size. But nonetheless, let me throw it on the wrist so you can see how it wears. And here's a wrist shot, guys. So as you can see, on my just over 7¼ inch wrist, I think it wears pretty well. It does have a cushion style case and it's fairly low in profile, you know, if you exclude that dome sapphire crystal. You know, I'd recommend it for someone with a 7-inch wrist or bigger to wear comfortably. Okay guys, so time for the wrap up. Let me just review the pros and cons. I think, again, if you can get this from the gray or used market for around $500 or $600 US, you're getting a phenomenal watch for the price. If this is actually stealing a lot of my wrist time currently, The level of finishing on this watch is amazing. You're getting really amazing sapphire crystal with anti-reflective application and hand finish indices and handset that rival watches that are twice the price easily. You know, you're getting a really nice sports watch of 200 meters water resistant. The leather strap is really good. Minor gripes though, with respect to the strap, and I wish this was more traditional and wore like a 24 or 22 millimeter strap. They could have signed the buckle, although that's not a huge downside to me. The Citizen movement, the 9012, you know, on the web forums, people just say that it is positionally regulated and they get a really amazing accuracy out of it, you know, plus or minus 2 or 3 seconds a day. This guy for me has been running consistently at plus 10 seconds a day, so it's not getting that accuracy that I was hoping to get, but it still is running within the tolerance for the specifications of that movement. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then lastly is the size. Again, I think it's a very nicely cushioned style case and it wears comfortably, but I can see it being a bit large for certain people, and especially if you wear this low on your wrist, this crown protection system might just dig in a little. So as always guys, I appreciate your time. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video.